Welcome back to GearWire.com. I'm Owen O'Malley, and this is the Trex reptile2 delay. The reptile2 is obviously the successor to the original reptile delay. And the original reptile delay, in turn, was the sort of junior version of the Trex replica, which is the company's flagship analog delay pedal. The reptile2 adds to the original reptile a tap tempo control and an expanded flutter section, which you can use to add modulation to your successive repeats, sort of tape, wow, and flutter style modulation. And it also gives you tone control over each successive repeat. Now, the controls in general are basically what you'd expect to find on an analog delay pedal. You've got echo, which is your wet-dry mix. You've got repeat, which is the number of successive repeats. And you've got time, which is the time between each successive repeat. And time can be controlled either with tap input or with this dial right here. It's a minimum of 10 milliseconds and a maximum of 1 second delay time. So not huge, but definitely a very usable range. The controls that are unique to this pedal are the level control, which is it's an overall master volume control. So this pedal can work really equally well either in front of an amp as part of your sort of preamp signal chain, if your amp doesn't have an FX loop, or you can throw it in an FX loop. The other unique control here is an input gain, and you can use that to sort of trim the incoming signal from your guitar depending on how hot the pickups are or what effects are in front of the pedal. And that's a way of having a little bit more control over the overall tonal characteristic of your pedal by controlling how hard your signal is hitting it. So let's take a listen to the time range on this guy. You can see that the LED right above the tap tempo is an indicator of how quickly each successive repeat is going to come. Let's turn up our repeats. Now check this out, even with the repeat time and your wet-dry maxed, you can't get this pedal to feed back on itself. You can't get the delay to feed back on itself. And that may be one of my only gripes with this pedal. The only other sort of slight gripe that I have is, with most analog delays, as you adjust the time and with the effects still engaged, you get this kind of fun pitching up and down. That's a fun thing to play with, especially when you've got really long repeats feedback. But listen to what happens on this pedal when we play around with the time control. Now it still does the same basic thing, but you can hear it adds a lot of this sort of gnarly extraneous noise, which, depending on how you feel about gnarly extraneous noise, can be a good thing. Now let's get some decent slapback tones out of this guy. We turn our repeats down a little bit, turn our time down. So you can see that there's a lot of range at the bottom of this time control where it doesn't really look like the tempo is changing. It's almost imperceptible changes in the delay time. But if we start playing with flutter control, you can get some really cool Leslie sounding effects down here. turn the repeats up, it gets really rich and really cool sounding. Now, if we bring the time up here, we can kind of listen to a little bit more to what the flutter control does. Really, it's just adding a sort of pitch up and down effect, which when the successive repeats intermingle, ends up chorusing. Now, your tone control is actually always on the flutter, so you can use this even when you're not doing crazy modulated stuff to affect the tone of each successive repeat. If it's all the way up, you can hear that each successive repeat is pretty bright. If we take our tone down, then each successive repeat gets darker, emulating that sort of warm tape degrading. So that is the Trex Reptile2 delay. It's a great affordable alternative to the flagship replica delay. It's got a huge number of tones that you can get out of it, a bunch of different really cool effects, a very useful pedal, and really well built. And it sounds great. You've been watching GearWire.com, and I'm Owen O'Malley, and thanks for checking us out.